Unworthy is a feeling felt by many. Miyo Saimori, the daughter of the prestigious Saimori family, is no stranger to this. The clan is known to house a revered bloodline of supernatural users, and yet she had no powers. So when her father remarried after the passing of her sickly mother, she was treated like a servant and forced to marry a vicious man. We hear the soft, almost whisper-like voice of a girl monologue.
The petals fell, like rain, dampening my cheeks. I was crying alone amid the raining petals. The warm sunlight of spring and the summer sunshine through the trees. The sunbeams through the autumn clouds. The morning light reflecting on snow. None of those would shine on me. I didn't even know what happiness was. After all, any gleam of hope has always disappeared right before my eyes. I had lived my life, always thinking that my existence was not necessary in this world. Till the day when I met that man.
The story begins with Kaya Saimori throwing her drink and complaining to her older sister, Miyo, that the tea she made was too bitter. Miyo complicitly apologized. Then, Kaya's mother, Kanako, told Miyo to hurry up and brew a new pot. The mother and daughter called Miyo a clumsy girl, just like her deceased mother. Berating Miyo was an everyday occurrence for the Saimori household. With the lord of the Tatsuishi clan leaving a gift for the servants of the household, Miyo overheard some servants talking about her and Kaya coming of age for marriage. After all, Miyo was already 19. Continuing her sweeping, Miyo was happy to see the youngest Tatsuishi son, Koji, here to greet her. He explained his father came to have a head of family meeting with hers, so that's why he was visiting as well. But really, he actually used that as an excuse to come talk to her. The two went out to the gazebo, where he gave her milk caramel sweets. She enjoyed it, and if there was any way he could make her smile, it was worth the price to him. He wished the two of them could spend time together like this all the time. He wanted to help her. She felt like he was always saving her. However, he accepted his place of being a plain guy who just wanted to always bring her joy. That evening, after dinner, Miyo's father told her to make sure she didn't leave the house during the day after tomorrow. In her room, Miyo thought about how she was treated like a servant. Her father's request was unnecessary, since she never went outside the boundaries of the house anyway. The day after tomorrow, it was just a normal day of cleaning for Miyo. Kaya came in looking for her mother, but of course, she had to come laughing at Miyo's expense, telling Miyo to go wash her face. Before leaving, Kaya told her older sister to make sure she didn't greet the guests looking like that, calling her the embarrassment of the Saimori family. We later see Koji, and despite Miyo complimenting his outfit, he didn't seem too eager today. She didn't know why yet, only hearing he had an important matter to discuss with her father. He took off first, wondering why it had to be this way. Miyo was then called for next, and looking in the mirror, she felt she shouldn't get her hopes up. Getting called like this by her father, it surely had to be something bad. It couldn't be a marriage offer with Koji. Entering in meekly, her father wanted to discuss the future of the Saimori family. First, crushing Miyo's hopes completely, he's arranged for Koji to marry her younger sister Kaya. Kaya smirked. Miyo was heartbroken, but just as shocking, the father had also arranged for Miyo to marry and leave the household. She was now engaged to Kiyoka, the head of the prestigious Kudou family. Koji was aghast hearing that name, while Kaya teased her sister. She was looking forward to seeing how long Miyo would last being that man's wife. But before Miyo could object, her father told her to gather her things immediately, as she was about to go to the Kudou house tomorrow. After the meeting ended, Koji saw Miyo standing out under the rain. We turned back to earlier at his household, where his father Minoru ordered him to become Kaya's husband all of a sudden. His father told him that Miyo was going to be saved, being betrothed to Koji's older brother Kazushi, and thus being sent over to live here at the Tatsuishi household. It had already been arranged, and Koji had no say in the matter. Miyo stared at the stump of her mother's cherry tree. Whenever she was feeling down, coming here gave her peace of mind, but now she wouldn't be able to come here anymore. She thanked her mother for always being here and said her goodbyes. Koji came up to her, only apologizing. He was ashamed of his cowardice. In the end, there was nothing he could do. However, Miyo told him there was no need to apologize. This was just bad luck. He tried to retort, but she told him it was alright. She might find happiness with whom she marries. She didn't blame anyone. When Koji asked if she resented him, she told him she'd forgotten that feeling a long time ago. He wanted to help her. He wanted to be able to laugh with her like they used to. But before he could admit his feelings for her, Kaya cut him off, and he said nothing more. Miyo then thanked him for his kindness until now, and taking off, Kaya smirked, as she usually did at her sister's suffering. As Miyo packed her things that night, the head maid brought in a kimono from her father. It was specified that she wear it tomorrow. The maid then explained Kiyoka Kudou was rumored to be a cold and merciless man. Every fiancé has run away from him. The maid then noticed Miyo's sack of belongings. There was barely anything in it. That's because most of what Miyo's mother had left her was thrown away. This was all she had. Staring at the fancy kimono, Miyo didn't believe it suited her. The next day, heading out, Miyo supposed she finally lost her fond memories as well as a house to call home. She thought back to her childhood, spent chasing after her beloved mother under the cherry tree, and remembered sobbing during her mother's funeral. The tree would eventually wither, and with her father marrying a new wife, the stepmother did not have love for her. Eventually, her sister was born, and she was left behind. Miyo took the public transit, remembering the kindness she tried to share with her sister, which was never reciprocated. The scolding she received from her stepmother, her mother's cherry tree that was chopped down. Her memories were filled with pain. Arriving at her destination, she wondered if the Kudou household was really here at such a secluded place. She found the house, thinking it to be much plainer than she imagined. She knocked on the door and was happily greeted by Yuri, a longtime servant of the Kudou family. Miyo was taken aback, receiving such warm kindness. Looking down as she usually did, she respectfully introduced herself to her fiancé, who was engrossed in his paperwork. He sighed, asking how long she intended to bow that way, and when she said sorry, he coldly responded he wasn't asking for an apology. Yuri had Miyo raise her head, and Miyo's eyes widened, seeing the beautiful man. To her, meeting him was like a flower coming out of the snow. Her life that had been shut off started to move forward again. Kiyoka Kudou introduced himself as the head, while Miyo only marveled at his beauty. Kiyoka told her that while she's here, she must absolutely follow his orders. If he commands her to leave, she leaves. If he commands her to die, she dies. However, he wasn't expecting such a complicit "yes, sir," as if this woman was so accustomed to yearning for nothing in life. Miyo's new life with him started in this quiet fashion. After receiving her new room, Yuri brought up the bad rumors about her young master, all while assuring Miyo he was actually kind. Lying in bed that night, Miyo noticed the high-grade futon. She thought her fiancé would be more abusive or treat her with contempt. She was even ready to be abruptly thrown out of the house. She had anxiety, knowing that because she was from the Saimori family, Kiyoka probably thinks she has supernatural powers. She thought back to the evening her father tested her and her sister to see if they possessed spirit sight. He opened a box, where a spirit walked out, one that frightened Kaya. It blew out the candles approaching her, causing Kaya to jolt back and scream for it to stop. Their father was proud of her abilities, and 6 months later, Kaya was receiving all the praise, seeing more and more, while Miyo was set aside because she couldn't see any. Even hearing from Kaneko that she was good for nothing. Miyo's personal maid, Hana, tried to console her, but little Miyo knew what her stepmother and sister said behind her back. That she was useless for not having supernatural abilities. She felt like she wasn't wanted here, just like her mother's cherry tree. These were all seen in a dream, because she didn't live in that house anymore. Feeling hungry and like she needed to make herself useful, she began preparing breakfast. Yuri gave her good mornings, and despite Miyo apologizing for not asking permission, the servant thought it was no problem. Since Miyo was Kiyoka's fiancé, Yuri was even grateful for the help. They presented Kiyoka his breakfast, and with him learning Miyo made it, he commanded her to sit beside him. He wanted her to try it first, causing her jaw to drop. He stepped up, not accepting the food and accusing her of trying to poison him before stepping away. Miyo was shaken. Although her intentions were good, just like usual, things turned out to be a massive failure. We then turned to Kiyoka's day at work as the leader of the special anti-grotesquerie unit, welcoming the new recruits. Through rigorous discipline, he told them to heighten their supernatural abilities. His subordinate, Yoshito Godot, explained supernatural abilities as potential that lied in one's spirit. Telekinesis, pyrokinesis, clairvoyance. Abilities did not go against the rules of nature in this world. They were manifestations of the power of spirit, and grotesqueries that have been around since ancient times, often called demons or spirits, were harmful to humans. The only way to fight them off was with supernatural abilities. Hearing two soldiers whisper, questioning why they were even training since they were usually never called to fight, Kiyoka powered up, shooting right past them with his powers, piercing one of the target boards. His stern look frightened them. He then explained grotesqueries have diminished with the passage of time, which is why their unit was rarely mobilized. Serious damage and confusion are assumed to occur from such incidents. He needed them to be ready for when the time came. When Kiyoka got to his paperwork, Yoshito entered the office, remarking how fired up Kiyoka was during the newcomer training. Yoshito really wanted to tease his boss, poking that another fiancé must have fled his house. Now seeing Kyoka's face, Yoshito could tell how pissed he was. So he left more paperwork and quickly fled. Kiyoka sighed, remembering this morning when Yuri had told him he shouldn't have treated Miyo so coldly during breakfast, and that she believed in no way did Miyo poison it. He thought it was rare for Yuri to defend someone to that extent. Miyo continued to fixate on her blunder from the morning. If the rumors about her husband-to-be were true, then perhaps she couldn't stay here anymore. Back at the Saimori house, Shinichi was preparing Koji to start entering into his family. Koji gave his best pleasantries to Kaya, despite his visibly sad smile. He put his things into Miyo's room, and thought about how if she was thrown out of the Kudou family with nowhere to go, he wanted to be the one who she felt safe with. He wondered if there was something only he could do. We then turned back to Miyo, apologizing to Kiyoka who had come home from work for the morning. She acknowledged her mistake, saying a man of his status couldn't possibly eat something prepared by someone he didn't trust, and that she should have known better, so everything tonight was prepared by Yuri. He then replied that he never seriously suspected her. He really just didn't feel like eating food prepared by a stranger. Eating his dinner, he noticed it was cold, but when Miyo apologized for that, he told her there was no need. He took note of her constant apologies that seemed so natural of her to do, and asked her why she kept saying sorry. In response, she tried saying sorry again, so he quickly told her to stop, because apologizing too much would cause it to lose its meaning. He wanted to know why she hadn't eaten, and she told him she didn't have an appetite, and she thus had also told Yuri she didn't need dinner. Finishing his meal, he then began to head for a bath. Miyo offered to draw him one. However, Kiyoka always did it himself, since it was easier with his supernatural abilities. Miyo was then reminded of her inadequacy. Since she didn't have abilities, she couldn't even draw a bath in this house. She felt she wasn't useful for anything. After his bath, Kiyoka apologized for not eating Miyo's breakfast this morning. He told her Yuri said she'd be a little late tomorrow morning, so Miyo was in charge of breakfast. Finally given a task, she thanked him. Taking her bath, she was grateful her fiancé gave her a chance to make up for her failure. She was determined not to mess up. She thought back to when she had torn up her room, unable to find her heirlooms from her mother. She assumed her stepmother had thrown them away and wanted to go confront her. However, Hana warned her not to confront Kanako alone. The result of the confrontation was Kanako pushing down Miyo and calling her the daughter of that conniving thief. Kanako claimed it to be a farce that she was accused of stealing. Seeing Miyo still had the comb from her mother, Kanako crushed it, and they locked Miyo in the storage, where she'd stay until she repented. She screamed and begged for her father's help. Hana tried to come to her aid, and that was when Kanako promptly fired her. This came back to Miyo through another bad dream. She wondered how Hana was doing these days. Since she was fired, the two had never seen each other again, even once. She wished for her old maid's happiness. While preparing breakfast, Miyo was shocked to see Yuri arrive even earlier than usual. Yuri explained she came this early out of concern for what happened yesterday, but after hearing what Kiyoka had said, Yuri giggled, knowing her master was being coy. He had lied, just wanting to eat Miyo's cooking. The two ended up cooking together, and after putting down the breakfast, Miyo wondered if Kiyoka would really eat food prepared by someone like herself. She watched with anxiousness at his every move. and when he drank the miso soup and expressed it to be good, she began to tear up. It was like a weight lifted off of her. She thanked him with tears dripping, so of course, he wanted to know why she was crying. She became red flustered, thinking it had been a long time since she had been praised or accepted by someone. Alone, Kiyoka contemplated the mystery of his new fiancée. She wore rags that couldn't even be called old clothes. Her body was so thin, she must have lived a troubled life. Her hands looked so worn from housework. He wondered how this girl could have come from such a prominent family. He later took his speculation of Miyo to Yuri, and she noticed the same. He wanted her to keep an eye on his fiancée discreetly, and he'd do what he could to look into the Saimori family. Yuri teased him for being unusually interested in this fiancé, making him pause. However, she teased further, saying this fiancé might not like him if he couldn't express his true feelings. But she was certain Miyo would be an excellent wife. He then thought about how there weren't a lot of bloodlines with supernatural abilities, and hoped bad news wouldn't come out of what he found out. And bad news. When I find out you haven't liked this video or subscribed to my channel yet. But if you have, I love you. Because here at my Shoujo Weekly, I've got plenty of fun stories in the shoujo genre here for you on a weekly basis. I also live stream, where we talk about anime topics and play fun games. So subscribe to me, your boy, ComfyTea. Over the phone, Koji's father was yelling at Miyo's for not upholding his agreement and giving her to his oldest son, Kazushi. Koji's father was pissed, desiring her blood from her mother's Usuba family to mix with his, the Tatsuishi. On another night, Miyo was pleased to see Kiyoka had finished his meal. Kiyoka asked what she did during the day. Learning after cleaning, she usually read magazines and did some sewing. Assuming she must feel bored here, Kiyoka kindly invited her to go out of town with him, much to her surprise. She declined at first, not wanting to be a bother, causing him to sigh, as he reassured her she'd be no trouble at all. It was at this moment Miyo realized she had no idea what her fiancé was thinking, now that their first date was suddenly scheduled. She combed her hair, feeling the pull from the broken bristles that her stepmother made. Yuri then came in, presenting a mirror to help Miyo prepare for her date. But with Miyo seeing her reflection, she self-consciously believed she and Kiyoka were ill-matched. Yuri helped Miyo's self-esteem by applying makeup on her, and voila! She looked even more like a doll now. Kiyoka then called for Miyo, and seeing her dolled up, his jaw dropped. He was so caught in a daze, he had to look away to pull himself together. The two rode in the car together, where he explained the day's activities. First, they went to his workplace, where he wanted to safely leave the vehicle before walking into town. But of course, they got caught by Yoshito, who was surprised to see his commander who was supposed to be off duty today. He then smirked seeing Kiyoka's new fiancée. Yoshito teased and poked, never having seen one of Kiyoka's fiancées before. However, Kiyoka did not enjoy the idea of his private life getting poked into, and thus sent his subordinate back to work. Making their way through town, Kiyoka asked Miyo if there was anywhere she wanted to go. She didn't know how to react to this. She couldn't think of anything she wanted at all. So, Kiyoka was considerate, telling her to follow him along. She found herself enjoying the scenery, jolting now at Kiyoka and apologizing for getting so distracted. But he told her not to worry. He wanted her to enjoy it to the fullest. He patted her head, pointing her up to look at him, as he warmly told her she wasn't causing any inconvenience and that he wanted her to come into town with him. She accepted, so as he continued walking, she followed behind, now wondering how he could have possibly been rumored to be a cold, merciless man because of how kind he was to her. We turn to Minoru confronting Shinichi once again about not upholding his promise of giving Miyo to his oldest son. Shinichi played dumb, explaining the marriage offer from the Kudou family was one he just couldn't refuse. Despite Miyo coming from the Usuba family, Shinichi argued this not being a problem, since she didn't inherit any abilities. But Minoru was pissed, because the Usuba were known to have absurdly powerful gifts, and even if she didn't inherit any, her children might. He brought up the potential dangers of the Kudou family becoming so powerful that their family's positions would be in danger. Truthfully though, Shinichi had no interest in what happened to Miyo. He was more than certain the Kudou family would abandon her after learning she inherited no power. Hearing this, Minoru began hatching his scheme to take Miyo. That way, his family could have her. These were all things Kaya tried to listen in on, but couldn't quite hear, so she tried asking one of the servants. She became angry, learning they might be discussing her big sister. However, Koji asked her not to raise her voice so loudly. He attempted to calm her down by inviting her to go shopping downtown, and taking his leave, Kaya speculated he still had feelings for Miyo. This all annoyed her. At the Suzushimaya shop, we learned the Kudou family had patroned loyally for years. This place was even known to have made garments for the emperor. Getting greeted, the owner Keiko smiled seeing Miyo. Sitting with Kiyoka one-on-one, Keiko teased him a little for finding a wife he liked, even though he denied it being a big deal. He had never brought a woman to the shop before, and he thought about how Yuri told him Miyo had been sewing her tattered kimono in secret. He then thought about the worn-out clothing, comparing them to ones worn by poor, rural farmers. The only proper one she had was the one she was wearing right now. She hardly had anything as someone who came from a prominent family should. Picking out fabrics, he noticed the pink cherry blossom pattern and imagined Miyo in it, thinking it'd be perfect on her. After taking his picks of fabric and jewelry from Keiko, she told him not to ever let go of Miyo. She claimed Miyo to be a diamond in the rough, with plenty of opportunity to shine. She told him that with his love and wealth, he must polish her and never let her go, and that he'd receive enjoyment of dressing the beautiful woman without hesitation. Later at a sweets shop, Miyo enjoyed some treats. Kiyoka was surprised due to her lack of expression, and was hoping to see her smile a little. She called him a bit strange in response, but then quickly asked for forgiveness, speaking so brazen for once. However, he did not want her to feel bad. In fact, since they were to be wed, he thought it was better if they were able to say whatever they wanted. He told her he'd be happier if she expressed her honest opinions with him, instead of apologies. What should have been a happy moment quickly filled Miyo with anxiety. She assumed he still didn't know about her lack of supernatural ability, and that she must tell him herself. However, she really hoped to stay with him as long as she could. For withholding the truth as long as she needed to, she was willing to accept any punishment later. Later that evening, Kiyoka was startled to learn Yuri was still at the house this late. However, she had questions about the box he brought home from Keiko. As Miyo attempted to enter her room, she found the box at her door, and opening it was a brand new comb. She quickly ran into Kyoka's room, where he told her to settle down and accept it. Yuri explained a comb as a gift, symbolizing a proposal of marriage. He was asking Miyo to marry him personally, even though he denied the idea to Yuri. Yuri was joyous, bringing up Miyo's half-broken comb. She knew such a precious gift would make his fiancée happy. He turned back to see Miyo smiling at him, a smile he'd been waiting to see that captured his heart. At work one day in his office, Kiyoka had someone look into the Saimori family, learning of the grudge Miyo's stepmother held. Apparently, Kanako and Shinichi were lovers, but Shinichi's family forced him to marry and have a child with Miyo's mother. This is where Kiyoka learned Miyo didn't have abilities while her younger sister did, most likely leading to Miyo's mistreatment in her upbringing. Kiyoka now understood Miyo had been oppressed by her stepmother and younger sister, and received no love from her father. She had grown up alone. He bet buying a new kimono was not enough to heal the wounds in her heart. The next shocking bit of news for them was learning Miyo's mother was from the Usuba family. The two weren't even sure that the clan had really even existed, but from myths, Kiyoka knew the family possessed abilities that interfered with the human mind. The informant could not, however, find out how Miyo's mother entered into the Saimori family. Taking his leave for the night, Kiyoka felt a presence watching him, and quickly set the simple shikigami ablaze that were spying on him, but now wondered who might be peering into his life. We suddenly see Miyo somehow peering into a vision of the past. Her mother, Sumi, begged Shinichi to acknowledge their daughter, but he wouldn't because Miyo didn't display even a trace of power. He even told the mother that if they were a normal family with no powers, no tradition to uphold, he would have likely been able to love Miyo. But that was not their reality. On the ground, Sumi apologized to her daughter, knowing she herself didn't have much time left. She knew one day, everything would be different for Miyo. This was yet another dream that Miyo woke up in a sweat from. Later, holding the comb gift she received from Kiyoka, Miyo told Yuri she wanted to get him a gift as well. With an excited vigor, Yuri handed Miyo a guide to handicrafts. That way, she could make something for Kiyoka he could use every day. Miyo came across a braided cord as her desired choice to make. She decided to get permission from Kiyoka to go out to town with Yuri, without disclosing her reason being to get materials for his gift. He was fine with it, but needed to give Miyo an important amulet, one he truly needed to have her keep with her at all times. She'd never seen one like it before, and lovingly accepted the sweet gift. At the Tatsuishi residence, after getting alerted Kaya had arrived, Koji's older brother, Kazushi, teased him that his fiancée would get upset with the expression on his face. Kazushi poked at his little brother for being so diligent and obedient, but when Koji tried blaming Kazushi for putting him in this position by playing around all the time, Kazushi used his power to choke Koji, only releasing him once he walked away. Kazushi's criticism of his little brother was that Koji was somehow nice and not nice all at the same time. Downtown at the store, Miyo marveled over the potential materials that would make the braided cord Kiyoka would wear. Afterwards, making their way along, Yuri mentioned she forgot to get salt since they were out of it. She went off on her own temporarily, leaving Miyo to wait for her. But the waiting wouldn't be pleasant with Kaya's voice telling Miyo, "Well, well, is that my sister I see?" Miyo's anxiety flared up, seeing Kaya standing beside Koji with that same look, as if her little sister were looking down on her. We turned to Kiyoka meeting with Shinichi and Kaneko at the Saimori residence. The two parents were shocked to hear Kiyoka fully intended to marry Miyo, and he was here on short notice to lay out the ground rules between the two families. Kiyoka knew that marriages between prominent ability families happened for moves of power. Usually, the families intertwining was based on mutual interests. But Kiyoka did not want his family to reciprocate anything to the Saimori family because of how they treated Miyo, the hell they forced her to live through. Miyo herself was reliving some of that hell at this very moment, as Kaya mocked her for wearing the same shabby kimono she always wore, claiming that Kiyoka had abandoned her. Koji tried to tell Kaya to leave Miyo alone, but in response, Kaya went into Koji's arms, saying she couldn't help speaking the truth, claiming it was inevitable that her big sister would get kicked out. Koji tried to leave, only to get pulled and told to stand still and be quiet. Kaya wasn't done mocking Miyo. Kiyoka was willing to give the Saimori family a dowry, on the condition they sincerely apologized to Miyo face to face. The parents were shaken, but regardless, Kiyoka stood his ground on his words, telling them he wouldn't force them, but if they refused his request, he'd cut ties here and now. Kaya went up close to tell Miyo if she needed money, she would only give it to her if she crawled on the ground and begged desperately. Kaya stomped all over her sister's self-esteem, saying no matter where Miyo went, she'd always be worthless. Out of reflex, Miyo began to apologize when Yuri made it back. Kaya introduced herself with a polite arrogance, thinking that Miyo and Yuri as servants were in the same station of ranking. However, Yuri cleared up the misconceptions, saying that was ridiculous and that Miyo would become the wife of Lord Commander Kiyoka Kudou, making Yuri the servant to Lady Miyo. Kaya and Koji were shocked. The little sister's smug look became that of a nervous one, having to put respect on the commander of the anti-grotesquerie unit. At home, Miyo became lifeless and void of any emotion, but she still somehow managed to thank Yuri for going out with her. All Miyo could think about was how awful she was, and how much she hated herself. With Kaya and Koji making it back home, she was blown away by the beauty of the guest leaving her house, not knowing who he was. When Kiyoka returned home, hearing Miyo's somber inflections in her voice, he asked if she was alright. Miyo told him not to worry about her. In private, Yuri relayed what had happened between Miyo and her sister, and how Miyo seemed terrified and it was as if the emotions were drained out of her. It was starting to click for Kiyoka. He tried to ask to speak to his fiancée, who sat depressed in her room. Despite telling Miyo her worries would eventually fade and that he'd always be here for her if she wanted to open up, she did not answer, only uttering to herself that she was sorry. By himself, Kiyoka wondered what he could possibly do to help Miyo. Then he remembered Yuri telling him a woman could gain confidence when she is shown love, and that all it took was communicating that he cherished Miyo in a meaningful way. He needed to use sincerity and engage her with his whole heart so his feelings could reach her. We eventually reached the day Miyo finished the braided cord for Kiyoka. However, she didn't know how to give it to him. She didn't believe she had the right to give it to him either. But then, Yuri called for Miyo, presenting her childhood maid, Hana, someone Miyo thought she'd never see again. There were plenty of pleasantries exchanged between the two. Hana had gotten married and was even blessed with her first child. Hearing she lived a simple and happy life brought Miyo to tears of joy. Hana's only wish the entire time was for Miyo to have a happy ending with a genuine smile on her face. Ever since the day they forced her to leave Miyo, her only choice was to go home. She came up close, asking if Miyo was happy now, and Miyo poured out her pains, responding there was no way she could be since she wasn't born with a gift. No spirit sight either. She wondered how she could ever be worthy of being Kiyoka's wife, how she could ever be happy when she didn't belong in this world. But then, Hana explained how she was even able to come visit the household. She was shocked getting such a letter from a man ranked as highly as Kiyoka, and now seeing the addressed letter sent from Kiyoka to Hana, Miyo was surprised, now wondering if he knew everything. Miyo had always believed, since she didn't have spirit sight like Kaya, that she was worthless, that she had nothing of value to offer Kiyoka, that he was so special. How could she possibly tell him that she herself wasn't? And if he ever found out the truth, would he abandon her? Would he leave and take her happiness with him? She wept, acknowledging the many assumptions she made about him. Hana reassured Miyo that Lord Kiyoka only sent her that letter after knowing what she had lived through. Miyo felt relief from Hana's words and was now willing to find her courage. Miyo hurried to Kiyoka, and panting at every breath, she admitted she had no gifts or spirit sight, that she came from a distinguished household with no skills, and intentionally withheld these facts about herself out of shame. She brought up the words he told her during their first interaction. If he wanted her to die, she would. If he wanted her to leave, she would. But first, she wanted to thank him for taking her into town, thank him for giving her the new comb, and everything else he'd done for her. As a sign of her gratitude, she gave him the braided cord she made herself. In response, he told her to look up at him and smiled, warmly asking, "Why would I ever want you to leave? I have every intention of making our engagement official as soon as I can." Holding her close, he asked, "What about you? Do you not want to live here with me?" She cried, telling him that's all she wanted, as long as he'd have her. So he held her close, saying the same, and that he didn't want anyone else. He then looked at the cord and said it was beautiful, now asking Miyo to tie his hair with it. After tying it, Kiyoka promised to always cherish the gift made from her heart. Seeing Hana off, Miyo thanked her old maid, because without Hana's words, she knows she'd probably still be hiding in her room right now. And seeing the happy couple off, Hana couldn't thank Kiyoka enough, wishing the couple a happy marriage. However, unbeknownst to them all, Paper Crane Shikigami had witnessed everything through the eyes of Minoru, who was pissed that things were going so well between Miyo and Kiyoka. He needed a way to destroy their relationship, and that's when Kaya came to his mind as a tool. We later find Keiko displaying the cherry blossom cloth over Miyo, complimenting how well the pattern paired with her skin tone. Miyo was pleased, thinking of how it looked just like her mother's kimono. The two older women giggled, explaining Kiyoka had picked out the pattern just for her, something that made Miyo even more happy. At the Tatsuishi residence, Kaya sees the photo of Miyo with that handsome man who left her house before. Her fingers trembled with jealousy and hatred. As Minoru explained the situation, she really couldn't hear him over her own thoughts repeatedly telling her she wouldn't allow Miyo happiness. She got up quickly. Returning to her snarky demeanor, she proposed to Minoru that she go to her father to get this fixed. She believed her father's love and desire to spoil her would prevail, a great benefit to Minoru. He's glad Kaya was saving him so much trouble. As a thank you to Kiyoka and Yoshito for reuniting her with Hana, Miyo decided to make a meal inviting Yoshito over. On the two's drive over, Yoshito was ecstatic to try her cooking, while his boss told him not to get too familiar, displaying a subtle hint of jealousy. Their banter was playful and comedic, and arriving at the house, Yoshito got thrown out of the car. Kiyoka then threatened him with fire, which he quickly dispelled with the appearance of his beautiful wife-to-be. Kiyoka walked towards her, staring as if he were in a trance, and uttered, "You're so beautiful," catching her off guard. And man, Yoshito did not want to be a third wheel here in their lovey-doveyness. However, Kaya was observing the entire time through a shikigami. She questioned why her older sister looked so much happier than herself. She wasn't going to let Miyo get away with this. Yoshito ate the dinner with a lot of vigor, expressing how lucky Kiyoka must be with all these delicious home-cooked meals from Miyo. but these comments only made the commander sigh. After Miyo poured Yoshito a drink, she graciously thanked him for driving Hana over to their place the other day, thanking him for spending precious hours of his life helping her, even though he didn't know her personally. Yoshito's face got bright red from the gratitude, and he grabbed Miyo's hands, becoming eccentric. He claimed his commander was a stick in the mud, and said that she should marry him instead. This caused Kiyoka to choke on his drink, but this was a joke, of course. Miyo was so sweet and polite though, thanking Yoshito for his request, and stating clearly she wanted to be with Kiyoka. Yoshito was surprised to hear Kiyoka being loved and having human qualities, making Kiyoka give a nasty look in response. They later sent the drunk Yoshito by taxi. Kiyoka expressed surprise at learning Miyo wanted to invite him. He then patted her head, lifting it to see her eyes, and she happily thanked him for allowing her to give her thanks to the two. We turned to Kaya asking why her father wouldn't let her marry Kiyoka instead of Miyo, claiming she was much better suited. Shinichi suddenly stopped, denying her request, telling her if she was so bored, she should go practice being a good homemaker instead of bothering him. Kaya's words from her mother rang in her mind. From a young age, Kanako told Kaya she was nothing like that thing, and that she must be better than her sister in every way. She then went into Koji's room, insidiously asking if he'd prefer to be engaged to her sister. We find Miyo in an empty darkness, where a strange creature pushes her down, bringing her back to that day her stepmother locked her into the storage. Kiyoka came to her side, noticing she was having a nightmare, and picking her up, he could feel the remnants of an ability, a strange occurrence, since the barrier around the house wasn't broken. He then looked at Miyo, who was apologizing in her sleep as a tear dripped down her face. He wiped it, waking her up, asking if she was all right in a soft whisper. She stared at him and began to blush. She was surprised to see him. The nightmare left her shaken, so he provided touch to console her and told her if she ever sensed something wrong, not to hesitate in telling him right away. On another day, Koji saw some strange men leave his father's house. He thought back to Kaya telling him what she was trying to do, and wondered what her and his father were planning to do to Miyo. Back at Miyo's place, she prepared a surprise lunch for Kiyoka with Yuri's help. After getting dressed, Yuri hurried Miyo out so they could make it on time to Kyoka's work for lunch. But this hurry unfortunately meant Miyo would leave her amulet behind. Kiyoka entered his father's room, surprised to find Kaya was there. Kaya was, of course, here to swap fiancés with her sister, and she reminded Koji he loved Miyo. Hearing their plan was to get Miyo to be the one who would agree to an annulment, Koji questioned what they were planning, and horrified in the confidence that his father had in succeeding. Kiyoka hurried out of the building to meet Miyo and Yuri to accept the surprise lunch. He offered for them to go inside, but Miyo declined, not wanting to take up any more of his time. The two women already decided to head home. After he quickly went back to his work, Miyo became distressed, realizing she left the amulet at home. The two went back quickly to try to retrieve it, and Miyo felt bad. After all, it was a precious amulet given to her by her fiancé. Then suddenly, a car stopped between Miyo and Yuri, and out came translucent men who threw Miyo into the car and knocked her out right in front of Yuri before speeding away. Kaya explained their plan was to make Miyo withdraw her marriage arrangement with Kiyoka before she left to take care of her part of the plan. Minoru added he had an obligation to see his lineage thrive and would do whatever it takes. Koji became upset after learning his father knew Miyo was getting abused all these years and never lent a hand, all for the Tatsuishi name. He tried to attack with his powers. However, it was clear he was no match for his father, and now felt the crushing weight of his father's lifetime of training. Koji was left defeated and helpless, unable to do anything, all while the father drove off, wishing his youngest son had better talent. Kazushi then arrived at where Koji was, poking at his little brother, before releasing his bindings. Koji was disappointed at himself for failing Miyo so many times and being unable to defeat his father. He hated that he kept saying he'd protect her when he couldn't. Kazushi then teased Koji once again, asking why he even tried to challenge their father if he was going to just sit around and feel sorry for himself. This gave Koji the determination he needed to save the woman he loved. At Kyoka's workplace, he was shocked to hear his fiancée had been kidnapped right off the street, and that she had forgotten the amulet which would have protected her. But now hearing the uproar a man was making trying to see him, Koji begged Kiyoka to save Miyo. Mio woke up, wondering where she was, now screaming for help, realizing she was tied up, and the only ones arriving to answer her calls were her sister and stepmother. Speeding their way there, Kiyoka was surprisingly calm, while Koji was frantic. However, Koji knew Mio could be at no other place than the Saimori household. Mio asked why they were doing this to her, only to get Kanako calling her irritating, saying she should have stayed a servant or died in a ditch somewhere. The stepmother ordered Mio to reject Kyoka's marriage proposal this instant, and that she must directly reject his offer. Kaya giggled as she picked up some shears. She believed Mio's pretty kimono was out of step with her position, and if Mio wouldn't refuse her marriage, the kimono would be cut to shreds. Mio's eyes widened in horror, hearing her sister saying she'd give Koji back once she was engaged to Kiyoka. Mio refused, but with the snap of the scissors, Mio squirmed over the damaged kimono her fiancé had bought for her, then stopped once the scissors were at her neck. Mio wondered why this was happening. However, her engagement was the one thing she wouldn't give up. When Kaya began walking away, Mio squeaked out that she couldn't give in to her demands, causing Kanako to smack her in response. Kaya then cut Mio down, and with her on the ground, Kaya pulled her by the hair to call her a failure, reminding Mio of her lack of supernatural gifts. She told Mio an embarrassment like herself couldn't possibly be Lord Kudou's wife, but still, Mio claimed her place as Kyoka's fiancée, and that she would never give that up. Kanako got angrier and began smacking Mio repeatedly, telling Mio she owed her for raising her until now. The stepmother called her a nasty child, leaving Mio tattered on the ground. The Mio from the past would have apologized. That's how she used to live. It was easier that way, but she didn't want to give up. She wasn't the person she used to be. She wanted to go back to where her husband-to-be was. At the Saimori gate, with no one answering the two men's call, Kiyoka destroyed it with such a ferocious lightning, the girls could see it from the storage room. Koji could hardly believe the power Kiyoka possessed. Shinichi came out asking for an explanation, of course, having no idea what was going on. But stepping in next was Minoru, telling the two younger men Mio wouldn't be returning to the Kudou house. Minoru then stood in their way, saying Mio herself said she wouldn't be going back. But Kiyoka wasn't having it. He powered up and started walking forward. The two older men casted a barrier which Kiyoka easily shattered. Minoru was nervous, but still summoned a gale that was easily deflected by Kyoka's own barrier. Then a single lightning strike was all it took to bring Minoru to his knees. It was clear they were no match for the commander. The two older men's power was baby in comparison. Mio got up, exhausted from all the beatings. She gave a defiant look, pissing the stepmother off into pushing her back down. Even so, Mio would not give up her engagement. Kanako then kicked her down, shouting at Mio to remember her place. But no matter what, Mio wouldn't surrender. For her husband-to-be who believed in her, she was going to stand her ground. Making their way to the storage house by Koji's lead, the two younger men were met by a surprise inferno from Minoru. This was no issue for Kiyoka, but definitely reckless since it set the Saimori residence ablaze. Seeing a flame tornado was enough for Kiyoka, so he shot a lightning bolt directly down on Minoru, knocking him unconscious. And Shinichi fell to his knees, wondering why this was all happening. In the storehouse, Kaya was choking Mio, trying to get her to say she would annul her engagement. In the past, Mio thought of how she was waiting for her time to die. Every single day brought more suffering and sadness. She was tired of living with her emotions shut off. There wasn't any place where she belonged. That's what she always thought. But when Kiyoka came into her life, she realized she was wrong. She belonged next to him. Even with her breaths barely escaping her throat and Kaya screaming at her, she wouldn't denounce her engagement. Then finally, Kiyoka made it to the storehouse. He ran to Mio, and in her heart, she was glad she never gave up. He softly told her she'd be alright now, and she was grateful he came all the way for someone like her, before fading out of consciousness. Kiyoka felt pain seeing her tattered clothing and bruised skin. Kanako decided to step outside to see what was going on, becoming horrified to see her home burning away, and she began to scream and cry. Kiyoka then asked Kaya what she was trying to achieve, hurting Mio this much. But Kaya took no fault, claiming all she wanted to do was correct a mistake. She commented on her sister's lack of spirit sight and scrawniness, calling her incompetent even as a servant. She told Kiyoka it was a mistake to accept Miyo into his family, whilst their parents both said she was the best one. Clamoring about her superiority, Kiyoka told her to shut up. Aha! Finally, I hate Kaya and her mom so much. Kaya tried to stop Kiyoka from leaving, shouting this wasn't fair. However, he had heard enough of her stupid bragging. He told her there was no chance in hell he'd choose an arrogant woman like her. After they left, she fell to her knees, as if everything she had been told her whole life was a lie. Koji grabbed her to evacuate, and when she struggled, he told her to be quiet. And to this, she asked him what he was doing, since he loved Miyo. She wanted to be left alone, and he responded she was right. He only loved Miyo, but knew Miyo's kind heart would lament even her death if she died. He didn't want to leave Miyo another painful scar. While Kiyoka continued to walk through the flames, Miyo saw a vision of her mother apologizing to her for all the hardship she put Miyo through. She told Miyo to believe in the power within herself before disappearing. Elsewhere, the Emperor was angered that Minoru had failed, and that now the Yusuba blood would be possessed by the Kudou family. A young man before him begged to be allowed the opportunity to fulfill his family's long-cherished wish. So, with permission, they could commence the plan to crush the Kudou family. Miyo eventually woke up to Kiyoka by her side. She was still in a great deal of pain, so he lifted her up. She tried to apologize for not being careful enough, but he didn't blame her. He told her none of this was her fault. She thanked him, and then Yuri came in crying out of relief for Miyo's safe return. Miyo felt great relief, learning everyone from the Saimori house survived unharmed. Kiyoka couldn't believe she was still worried about them. Despite everything they put her through, she truly had a kind heart. She was saddened hearing the house burned down and asked him to take her to see it once again. She was horrified to see the remains of her old home. Having lost the mansion to the fire, her parents let most of the servants go and were moving to their villa in the countryside. Although it's true the Tatsuishi family caused this to happen, this knowledge was not made public, and they would suffer no legal consequences. But to take responsibility, the eldest son Kazushi would take over as head of the family, and that new head of the family accepted certain restrictions under Kiyoka's supervision. Effectively, the Tatsuishi family would be under the Kudou family's command. As a result of this, Kaya was sent alone as a servant to a family known to be very strict, a way to have her experience life outside of the spoiled, sheltered one she lived in. We see Kaya's fiancé Koji telling her they should start a new life from here. He felt strange seeing her pack so few things for their leave. She shouted not to talk down to her, and after he left, she stared in pain looking at the old photo of herself. Miyo released a sad sigh, seeing the burnt cherry tree that was planted the day her mother got married. She felt her mother called her here to see it. Touching it, she pulled back, feeling a strange pulse, and before their eyes, the stump dissipated into dust. Kiyoka felt terrible, being partially responsible for what had happened. However, Miyo told him not to. He saved her, and this made her very happy. Taking their leave, Kiyoka began to talk about getting a move on with their marriage procedures. His father had been pressuring him to get married for a while now. Hearing Miyo was worried about disappointing his father, Kiyoka told her not to worry. If his father gave them trouble, he'd burn him to ashes. Koji met them on their way out, asking to talk to Miyo privately. At the gazebo they used to meet at all the time, Miyo thanked him for his help. Even though he didn't feel he deserved any credit, he's decided to return to the capital to retrain himself, realizing now how much strength he lacked. He didn't want to be weak anymore, and he was certain Kaya would do her best where she'll be a servant. He wanted to try his best too, to become strong so he could protect who he wanted, when he wanted. He then reminded Miyo about that time in the rain, when he was about to say something to her before Kaya stopped him. Miyo thought back to that moment where he told her he wanted to save her, where he told her he wanted the two of them to laugh the way they used to. Because she smiled, denying any idea of what he was talking about. He was hurt by this, knowing the woman he loved no longer loved him, but accepted it wholly. He played it off as well and happily took his leave, desiring to strive for better. With part 1 concluding, this is the perfect time to talk about the characters. Their personalities and motivations were the cornerstone to telling such a cohesive and powerful story. about a girl who was abused gaining love and acceptance, eventually leading to Miyo's self-actualization, discovering she didn't need special powers to belong in this world. Let's start off with all the characters I hate, which, by the way, is like nearly half the cast. There's her father, Shinichi, a stoic man living in a world where he had the duty to uphold his bloodline of supernatural abilities, which we learned was rare in this world. He was indifferent towards Miyo, even acknowledging he would have loved her lack of power if not for his upbringing that placed so much importance on keeping the gene pool strong. This indifference ultimately created the result that was very much deserved, losing his house that he inherited from his family. Speaking of losing, there's the stepmother, Kaneko. With this being the second time I watched the anime to script this video, I missed out on the fact that the main reason she hated Miyo and Miyo's mother was because she was in fact Shinichi's original lover, only casted aside because the Saimori family wanted Miyo's mother's powers. She definitely held this grudge against Miyo for most of her childhood, even instilling into her daughter Kaya that she must be better than Miyo in every way. Which ultimately brings us to the last character on the chain of most hated, Kaya. I honestly don't even know if I hate her or her mother more. The thing about Kaya is, while yes, she was pretentious, practically dragging her sister through the mud constantly, it was her mother that raised her to be that way. And being spoiled along with being told she needed to be better than Miyo from the moment she was born, it sucks that we the viewer can somewhat understand her position. Still, I hate her guts. Next character on the hate block, but slightly less for me, was actually Koji. Now, my dear viewer, are you wondering why I hate him? It's because he's so submissive and weak it's irritating. I don't actually hate him more than any of the previous characters, but I see Koji as weak and pathetic, saying things like he'll protect Miyo, only to be shut down by both Kaya and his own father. He does get redemption, as we learn he decides to strengthen himself in the capital, but I think his brother said it best, mentioning how strange it was that he was both kind, yet not at the same time. All these characters were masterfully crafted and weaved in for the viewer to hate/dislike, so that Miyo could experience struggle and grow from it. The trauma she experienced from the abuse left her both shaken and worthless. And aside from the backstory, her actual meekness and soft-spoken voice lend to the immersiveness of her character. Kiyoka ironically has the least I have to say about. He's obviously just a well-put-together hot guy who's perfect and has the most powerful abilities. We don't even really know that much about him, but up to this point, he's mostly been a tool to fill Miyo's heart. Will we get to understand him a little better? I think so in this next part. The engagement procedure was simple. The two lovers only needed to write their names on a form, and in the end, the engagement ceremony was not held by the two families. Now, they were officially engaged, and soon, Miyo would become Mrs. Kudou. The idea flustered her. Times were finally joyous. Later, Kyoka's older sister Hazuki makes an appearance. A few nights ago, Miyo had told Kiyoka she wanted to redo lessons and being a proper lady. Seeing her blush at him, he decided to check her temperature, and she assured him she was fine. He accepted the idea of her getting lessons, and knew the perfect person who had too much leisure time on their hands for the job. We turn back to the present, and see Hazuki excited to see Yuri again after all these years. However, Kiyoka sighed, seeing his carefree sister hadn't changed one bit. After they all sat down, Hazuki scolded Kiyoka for not telling Miyo she was brought here for her lady training. Hazuki apologized on behalf of her brother, who in her words always seemed to neglect explanations. But either way, she was more than happy to take responsibility for turning her sister-in-law into a refined lady. Outside, Hazuki admired the Tenjiku Botan, also known as the dahlia flower. She ushered Miyo to come over, asking what her favorite flower was. Miyo wasn't too familiar with flower names, and hunching down, her hand went towards some weeds called Asiatic dayflowers. Miyo was surprised to learn even weeds had names. So Hazuki explained that no matter how small, all flowers were named something. They were all beautiful. Dayflowers only remained open until around noon, but stood tall and bloomed proudly. Hazuki believed all flowers were beautiful for trying their hardest to bloom for the limited time they had. She thought of herself and Miyo as the same, and told her they should try their best to live beautifully for the limited time they had. The first step was reading Hazuki's book collection for homemaking, and passing by, Yuri giggled at Kiyoka, who was trying to eavesdrop on them. We learned Hazuki was actually divorced, but she graduated from girls' school and had taken tons of lessons. Miyo was so grateful that Hazuki came, and Hazuki in response thought Miyo was so cute. Hazuki asked Kiyoka if she could take Miyo home with her, to which he sternly declined. So the older sister teased him, saying he would be so lonely without his wife-to-be, making him flustered. Hazuki then gave Miyo a goal to complete her training within 2 months. That way, she could come to a party and test her skills. Miyo wanted to become a splendid lady like Hazuki. She wanted to be a wife deserving of her husband. That evening, Kiyoka suddenly woke up, sensing supernatural abilities. He hurried to Miyo's room, finding her suffering from a nightmare, so he held her hand and calmed her down. Another nightmare, and the remnants of supernatural ability he felt before. With the barrier still not broken, he determined it was unlikely an outsider came in. If it was psychological, this must have something to do with the Yosuba clan. Elsewhere, we see some men chanting around a rock in the night. When fire caught around them, the men called to put up another barrier. But once the rock cracked and bursted, it was too late. The monsters from within were unleashed. At work, Kiyoka met with Major General Masashi Kaito. Apparently the son of the Emperor Takahito had received a revelation, and the general was to meet with him soon. Kiyoka was horrified to hear there was a grave break-in where monsters escaped. There was a tomb deep in the Forbidden Land, a burial ground for gift users, referred to as the Grave. It was here that vengeful spirits of the supernaturally gifted transformed into grotesqueries. To prevent their escape, they were sealed away. Their escape would create an unprecedented crisis for everyone in the imperial capital. The big question was, who would unseal the grave? Meeting with Kazushi on their way, Kiyoka scolded the man for dressing so casually when they were to meet Prince Takahito. However, Kazushi argued it didn't matter for him since he wasn't military. Despite his easygoing demeanor earlier, Kazushi in front of the prince was serious, apologizing for the disgrace his father committed to the Tatsuishi name. The prince then forgave the Tatsuishi on behalf of his father. They then got to the prince's ability, Revelation. He saw that from the realm of the dead, a never-ending night would come. There would be a battle soon. Danger was already approaching the capital. Before the three took their leave, the prince stopped Kiyoka to tell him he had a revelation about his engagement. Things would be difficult for Kiyoka and his fiancée soon. We turned to Miyo practicing her posture with Hazuki, and showing her smile, Miyo was certainly awkward. So, Hazuki told Miyo a funny story involving Kiyoka eating pickles, aiming to find Miyo's natural smile just like when she laughed. Next was practice moving in a dress, much different than in a kimono. And again, Miyo was a little off. She needed to work on her Western table manners as well. Miyo could tell Hazuki was a real proper lady, and she herself improved a little every day. Kiyoka's mind was filled with worry, knowing something was going to happen to Miyo based on the prince's revelation. He remembered discovering Miyo's mother's background from the Yosuba family. The family's powers were considered exceptional and often seen as a threat. They possessed the ability to read minds, look into one's memories, and even enter another's dreams while they sleep. He wondered if Miyo's nightmares were linked to someone from the Yosuba. He met privately with the informant from earlier, who he sent this time to dig up whatever he could on the Yosuba. However, there wasn't a single record or document in the family's name. The single thread to them was Miyo's mother. Sumi was the only Yosuba the records mentioned. On another day, a man from the ministry of the imperial household arrived at Kiyoka's workplace. Kiyoka met with the messenger named Arata Tsuruki. Arata had apparently heard of Kiyoka already. The ladies spoke pretty ill of him, calling Kiyoka an unapproachable frozen tundra. Arata opened his briefcase to give his report on the grave, bringing up that a multitude of suspicious men collapsed near the scene of the crime. Kiyoka felt strange about receiving this info, since the ministry did not usually disclose classified details so easily, but now learned of the danger lurking since only 20% of the grotesqueries had been retrieved. Kiyoka then spoke exactly what was on his mind, that Arata was not from the ministry of the imperial household, and Arata confirmed, saying instead that he had a long relationship with the ministry, but most people know him for running the Tsuruki Trading Company, and that his work mostly involved researching and handling negotiations. Now Kiyoka understood. The ministry had employed the Tsuruki Company to handle negotiations since they were swamped, and the two ended their meeting with a handshake. Later in the evening, the anti-grotesquerie unit went up to the mountains to examine the gravesite. In tents at the bottom of the mountain, Kazushi and the general were examining unconscious men, who were likely the perpetrators of the unsealing. All the men from the gravesite were found in this state, and no one had any idea of why they were like this. Kazushi figured it must be a curse from the grotesquerie. and he had the ability to unseal curses placed by living beings, but had never worked on curses from the dead. Going further in, Kiyoka thought the forest was too quiet, as if the sound of it just vanished. As Kazushi tried to lift the curse, he pulled back, seeing the horrifying monsters. It was more than he could handle. The grotesqueries quickly surrounded the unit, while Miyo found herself in a strange place, with black hands grabbing at her. While Kiyoka was doing battle with the monsters, Miyo woke up, face dripping tears, and by sunrise, the unit was victorious. During daytime, Miyo was downtown with Hazuki and Yuri, but restless from the lack of sleep. Hazuki told Miyo there was no need to overdo things, so she ushered her home. Then, a boy accidentally knocked Miyo's pouch down, and when she went to pick it up, Miyo began to fall from exhaustion, getting picked up by who she thought was Kiyoka. But in reality, it was Arata? And he knew her name already? Realizing what had happened, Miyo quickly got up and apologized. With the two parties taking their leave, Arata kept his eyes on her, noting her to be very special. Hearing what happened, Kiyoka returned as quick as he could, panting. Seeing Miyo was already sleeping, he and his sister discussed the nightmares possibly caused by someone from the Usuba family. The other theory he speculated on is that perhaps her Usuba blood was harming her. Regardless, Miyo knew nothing of her family's past since her mother died when she was young, and also, he doubted she'd even talk if they asked her. Miyo seemed to be hiding her feelings more than ever these days. Elsewhere, we see a simple cart vendor and his dog traveling in the night. Sensing something unseen, the dog begins to bark, and then appears a horde of grotesqueries. Kiyoka hears the report later from Yoshito about the man being found passed out in the woods near the forbidden area. The man is currently in a coma. Miyo suddenly wakes up heaving, questioning why she's still having nightmares all the time. She started to have doubts about herself, wondering how she could become a proper lady when she was back to being how she was before. Since Miyo fainted, Hazuki reduced her lessons. Miyo felt ashamed that her opportunity to study was being wasted. Talking to Kiyoka over the phone, she offered to bring him a meal since he had been consumed with work, oftentimes working overnight these days to handle the monster attacks. However, hearing him turn her down because he wanted her to rest only made her feel more inadequate. He tried asking if anything was troubling her, only to have her respond that she was fine and he had no need to worry about her. During her meal with the other two ladies, Hazuki was impressed by Miyo's fancy cooking skills, then mentioned her one regret in life was her marriage. At the age of 17 and being born under the Kudou family, she was fully prepared to be married for political reasons. Her husband was a kind, good man. She was happy, but didn't get along with his family. She attributed this to her lack of skills in housework and her immaturity as a person. Her husband often comforted her, but one day, they both got emotional while talking about it, and a big fight led to their divorce. And when she came back to her family's home and calmed down, she regretted it all deeply. Hazuki respected Miyo for trying to overcome her weakness without running away. She wished for Miyo to be true to her feelings. That way, Miyo wouldn't have regrets like she did. Miyo thought about what she wanted, to be a wife worthy of her husband, to be a proper lady like Hazuki. She'd never thought about how she wanted to live before, but knew one thing for certain. She wanted to be here, and by Kiyoka's side. One evening, she decided to sit beside him outside. He immediately apologized for being too busy to talk to her lately, but now asking if something was bothering her, and hearing her answer, nothing in particular, he became saddened knowing there was probably something. Miyo then switched the conversation to ask about Hazuki from his childhood. He remarked his older sister being loud and annoying sometimes, but as siblings, they understood each other beyond likes and dislikes. And while their personalities weren't very compatible, he believed she was a good person in her own way. Miyo thought Kiyoka's words about his sister were very sweet. She was envious because she didn't have anyone like that. He then told her to scoot closer to him and suddenly grabbed her hands, telling her if she ever felt lonely, she should say so. If she was ever suffering, he wanted to know. She tried telling him she wasn't lonely and he retorted, saying he missed being with her, so why wouldn't she miss him too? And finally, she said she did. He wished she had just said so from the start and brought her in, holding her close, uttering she could lean on him and tell her true feelings. If she would be more selfish, he'd accept her wholly, because that's what family does. Miyo knew her husband-to-be was kind, but felt if she allowed herself to be coddled, she couldn't become a proper wife. She felt the need to solve problems herself, or she wouldn't be enough to support the family. Miyo then heard a man calling at her door, and to her surprise, it was Arata. She thanked him for his help the other day, and when the two shook hands, he mentioned knowing who she was already, since Kiyoka finding a fiancé was the talk of social circles. However, he now wondered if the rumors of Kiyoka's cruelty were true, since Miyo looked so pale in the face. Arata criticized Kiyoka for constantly neglecting her. Miyo pulled away, retorting it wasn't her fiancé's fault, but Arata kept going, adding Kiyoka didn't understand her true worth. He brought up how she's constantly been taking lessons on posture and tea ceremony. But how could he know this? Miyo told him to stop, claiming she was doing it out of her own choosing. Arata apologized for speaking out of turn, and before he left, he told her he could give her a role only she could fulfill, and gave her his card that she could use to contact him at any time. Later, after Arata relayed the permissions from the Imperial House, he apologized for being late, as he stopped by Kiyoka's house thinking it was his day off by mistake. Kiyoka paused, not liking the fact that Arata met his fiancée, and now this outsider was criticizing the way Kiyoka treated her. Arata became snarky, saying Kiyoka didn't see the real Miyo, and wasn't taking care of her properly. But if Kiyoka ever needed help with Miyo, Arata offered his assistance. Later that night, on the phone with his informant, Kiyoka learns Miyo's mother went by the name Sumi Tsuruki, the same last name as Arata's. Arriving at home, he called for Miyo's name, but she was unresponsive. With all the food cooked, he could tell she was indeed pushing herself too far. Seeing her face, he could tell she was completely worn out. With concern in his tone, he asked why she was losing so much weight, and why she didn't tell him she fainted the other day when Arata cut her. He opened up about how he knew she had nightmares every night. He was hurting from the fact that she didn't tell him anything, and in response, she was frantic, admitting she didn't want to bother him. She thought he'd be too tired from work, and she didn't want to concern him. He told her the obvious. She was the tired one, and that perhaps he shouldn't have let her study under his sister. This completely broke her heart, and broke her into tears. He realized he was wrong. He shouldn't be talking to her this way, and with her now passing out in his arms, he understood he had just said the worst possible thing to her. He compared his treatment of her to that of the Saimori family. A part of him now thought Arata might be right. Seeing Arata's card fall, he crushed it, and was now on the way with Miyo to meet him, with hopes to end her suffering. Carrying Miyo on foot, Kiyoka entered Arata's family estate. Miyo woke up, telling her fiancé she was fine and she could walk on her own, and placing her down, he still had great concern in his heart. Making it to the house, Kiyoka was astonished to see a cherry blossom tree blooming midsummer, and strangely, Miyo felt like she'd seen it before. With Arata meeting them now, he welcomed the two to the Usuba estate, and we learn his true name is Arata Usuba. Tsuruki was his pseudonym. He was actually Miyo's cousin, and knew the two were here to stop her from having nightmares. We learn further the nightmares were caused not just by her blood, but her own supernatural ability, one that was extremely dangerous and powerful. Miyo thought this was impossible because she didn't have spirit sight, and normally, she'd be right, since that signified for the average user whether or not they had powers. But that was not the case for the Usuba clan. Yoshiro Usuba, their grandfather, confirmed this, also remarking how much Miyo resembled her mother, Sumi. Inside, Miyo's body felt lighter because of the Usuba barrier around the house. If she remained here, she'd be back in good health in no time. Leaving would mean the nightmares would start once again. There was a way to stop the nightmares altogether. However, Yoshiro laid out one condition. He wanted Kiyoka to turn Miyo over to them. The couple was shocked, but Yoshiro elaborated that her existence was worth more to their family than anything. When Kiyoka questioned why now after all this time, Yoshiro responded it was because they didn't think she'd develop an ability. But recently, they noticed she had, and the ability was rare even amongst their clan. Miyo had what's known as dream sight, the ability to intervene in people's dreams. That same ability was causing her nightmares. If they didn't get it under control, it would eventually lead to calamities. The grandfather made his intentions clear. He wanted to return Miyo to where he thought she belonged, saying there's no way they could allow her to wed outside the clan. Kiyoka wasn't having it, but Arata interjected, letting him know they were telling him this with their utmost consideration for him. Kiyoka stood up out of anger, saying they were trying to use her. To this though, Arata reminded him he failed to protect Miyo during the Saimori incident, which led to her kidnapping and getting wounded. And now that he couldn't stop her from having nightmares, he was letting her suffer needlessly. On top of that, they were having a national crisis with the grave opening, so we couldn't afford to be here. Miyo felt that because of herself, Kiyoka was pushing himself so hard. When they asked her what she wanted, she thought back to Kiyoka shouting at her and she told them, "I don't know." An answer Kiyoka didn't expect. If she said she wanted to be with Kiyoka, she felt she'd be tying him down forever. Arata then concluded no talking would solve this, so he challenged Kiyoka fairly to a duel. If Kiyoka wins, he'd teach Miyo the method to control her ability, but if Kiyoka lost, he'd hand her over. Outside, Kiyoka drew his blade while Arata readied his pistol. Neither of them were going to hold back. The match started with Kiyoka dodging Arata's shots, and Arata also evading Kyoka's slashes in turn. Kiyoka closed the distance with his immense speed, landing an attack on an illusion. This costed Kiyoka, who received a direct shot in his arm. Kiyoka got in while dodging more shots, only to once again slash an illusion, but was able to slice bullets shot at him now knowing Arata's tactics. Kiyoka had figured out Arata's ability. Arata then smirked, elaborating that most of the Yosuba family did not have spirit sight. That skill was necessary when battling grotesqueries, meaning the Yosuba clan specialized in battling humans with supernatural abilities. That's why they stayed in the shadows. They've served the Emperor to eliminate rogue ability users all this time. Arata then casted a fog and emerged several clones of himself. But this was no problem for Kiyoka. He had immense lightning that encompassed the area, and he eliminated several clones with a single stroke. Kiyoka was now dominating, eliminating clone after clone, and cutting down bullets Arata fired. Arata was astonished because no one ever had the speed to match his illusions. But in response, he created even more clones of himself. However, Kiyoka would power up a fireball, ready to kill Arata completely. He fired a shot that eliminated all of the clones at once, knocking Arata over. And as Kiyoka went for the finishing slash, Miyo stood in front to stop him. But this was merely an illusion that Arata used to disguise his bullet that would disarm Kiyoka, winning him the match. Arata had claimed victory. Miyo then ran to Kiyoka and the lovers reached out for each other. It didn't matter though, because with a snap of Arata's fingers, he sent Kiyoka away, leaving her in tears. All Kiyoka could do is lie in defeat. At home, his sister was disappointed in him for coming back and moping after his loss. She wanted him to go and get back Miyo right now, but losing the duel, he felt he had no right to. So she knocked his head. He tried moping again, so she punched him again, telling him to think about how Miyo really felt. Miyo blamed herself. Miyo thought she was bad for not realizing how he felt. She wanted so badly to stay by his side, but knew that if he turned her away, it was over. That's why she wanted to improve herself. She wanted to be needed by him. That's why she was afraid to confide in him. Kiyoka now realized he made a big mistake. He got a call from work that there was an emergency situation going on, and swore once he was done saving the city, he'd bring Miyo back without fail. At the Imperial Palace, the Emperor was cackling to himself, saying soon everything that posed a threat to him would cease to exist. We then turned back to the Yosuba house, where after hearing what was happening with the grotesqueries, Arata was concerned about what would happen to the city if the special forces failed to stop them. He thought back to his upbringing with his grandfather, who told the young Arata he had a duty only he could fulfill. He entered a room to check on Miyo, but the first thing out of her mouth was asking how her fiancé was. He explained Kiyoka returned home safely and was back to work as usual. Afterwards, he placed a photo of Miyo's mother, standing next to their grandfather. Sumi apparently had the supernatural ability to connect with people's minds. Telepathy. It is said that a child of wielders of that ability tend to also develop unusually rare ones. Miyo's in particular was very powerful, because by entering one's dreams, she could potentially brainwash them. And as dream sight improves, she'd also be able to see the past, present, and future. All of time could be viewed. She wondered why this ability was only awakening now, and her grandfather added it was because someone sealed her ability off. That someone was her own mother. Yoshiro decided to tell the story about why Sumi married into the Saimori family and the reason she sealed Miyo's powers. Before Miyo was born, the Tsuruki Trading Company failed in negotiations with a certain leading client, leading to a financial fall within the company. Since the Yosuba clan was backed by Tsuruki Trading, the clan faced heavy debt load and was facing a predicament. That's why the Saimori family brought forward the marriage proposal, having heard from somewhere the Yosuba family was in crisis. They would pay off the Yosuba's debts if Sumi married their son, Shinichi. Despite the Saimoris being persistent, Yoshiro rejected every offer. But one day, Sumi accepted their offer on her own without consulting him. He was frustrated, knowing they'd be giving the Usuba blood to another family. He knew his daughter had such a frail, sickly body as well, but she wanted to do what she could to protect their family. After her marriage to the Saimori house, Yoshiro cut off her means of communication with Usuba, breaking their family ties. Wanting to show Miyo the extent of her dream sight abilities, he had her touch the cherry blossom tree outside, and touching it, Miyo was engulfed with light, seeing a vision of the past. Shinichi's father at the time reminded him this wasn't just a political marriage. He needed to fulfill his role in conceiving a child with the Usuba's supernatural ability. After giving birth to Miyo, Sumi felt the spark from her telepathy and immediately knew Miyo had dream sight. One day, Sumi overheard her father-in-law telling Shinichi they needed to confirm Miyo's ability as soon as possible. And if it wasn't a Usuba ability, they needed Sumi to conceive another child quickly, knowing she would die soon from her illness. Sumi knew her time was coming very soon. She knew if Miyo's ability was discovered, the Saimoris would abuse it, so she needed to seal it away. She knew because of this, Miyo would end up ostracized and wondering why she didn't have any abilities. But the sealing was for her protection. Miyo fell to her knees, now understanding it all. Elsewhere, we see another set of men chanting around a gravesite, and the anti-grotesquerie unit dealing with the result. They were getting overwhelmed, until Kiyoka rained his powerful lightning down to save them. Now the unit was ready to go and eliminate the rest. Waking up suddenly the next day, Miyo found Arata teasing that her complexion looked a lot better, and had her put on the outfit for the Maiden of Dream Sight, handed down through generations of their family. He would take her previous clothes away and keep them hidden. Miyo was released from her nightmares and her body was making a recovery, but as time went by in this small birdcage, her feelings for her husband-to-be and her regrets got stronger by the day. She wished she had told Kiyoka she decided long ago she always wanted to be with him. She blamed herself for getting stuck in this position. Even with plenty of food served for her, Miyo did not feel hungry in front of Arata. He wondered what was wrong. Did she hate him? Did she not like her room? Was the food not to her liking? But that was not it. She wanted Arata to give her cherry blossom kimono back. It's a precious kimono her fiancé gave to her. Arata refused. She then told him she wanted to talk to Kiyoka again, because she was wrong about everything, and now she was ashamed to face him. She wanted to apologize to him in earnest. Arata set down his tea with intensity, telling her she wasn't allowed. He spoke with indignance, asking her if she knew how desperately he waited for her and how much happiness he felt right now, and whispered he wanted to protect her to her ear. But still, she insisted on seeing Kiyoka. Arata seemed disappointed, explaining the faithful code of the Usuba ancestors. They weren't to use their real family name, and were permitted to marry only within their kin. They could not have close friends or romantic partners outside of that. The Usuba clan's duty is to subjugate the out-of-control supernatural ability possessors. But he has never been asked to do it once since he was born. He felt empty having to adhere to a code that meant nothing. All he wanted was to finally fulfill his role. When a Maiden of Dreamsight appears, a member of the family with supernatural abilities is chosen to protect the maiden with their life. In the present day, that would be Arata's role, presumably doubling as her spouse. This revelation surprised Miyo. He begged her to stay, not wanting to cede this mission to anyone. Alone in his office, Arata reflected initially on how he thought Miyo was just like him, someone who had lost the purpose to live and was feeling hollow like he was. Intense lightning rained, defeating the last bit of monsters, and the anti-grotesquerie unit was exhausted but celebrating. However, as tree bark rotted before Yoshito's foot, one monster remained. The monster dodged Yoshito's attack, and Kiyoka pushed him out of the way, taking a direct hit while slashing the monster apart. The commander felt pain in his chest, while his vision faded to black. On the deck, sitting with her grandfather, Miyo asked for permission to see Kiyoka again. The grandfather smiled, thinking her stubbornness reminded him of Sumi. He wished he hadn't been so cruel and cut her off. Then maybe she wouldn't have died so early, and Miyo wouldn't have led such an unfortunate life. He apologized for all the hardships Miyo had lived through because of it. Being blood family, he wanted Miyo to be able to rely on him in any way, but she didn't know what to say. To begin with, she didn't know what it meant to be a family. The grandfather was glad she spoke her mind to him, and explained he thinks sharing a burden you cannot carry by yourself is what a family does. Relying didn't mean leaving everything up to another person. It meant asking someone to carry some of your load that you couldn't carry by yourself. It's okay to disappoint them or anger them. The bond of a family won't be broken by something like that. He had lost his temper when Sumi left their house, but he never hated her. Looking back, he still regretted misjudging what he should have protected and lost his beloved daughter. He cared for Miyo the same way and felt great happiness finally meeting her. Miyo now knew her grandfather felt the same way as her. He said things that were not true in his heart, which hurt someone important to him, and he regretted it. Miyo touched the cherry blossom tree once more, absorbing its powers. Inside, her mother told her she loved her, and Miyo was in tears now with the seal completely broken. Arata came running outside, having received a message from the military. He reported the attack that hit Kiyoka, putting him into a coma. Miyo began to run, but Arata tried stopping her. However, she pushed him off. Arata then explained the one keeping her here was not actually her family, but truly Emperor Mikado. The Emperor agreed to help the Yusuba get the Dream Sight ability back into their family, but in exchange, he wanted Miyo not to have contact with any other people with abilities. He ordered the family to completely hide the existence of the Maiden of Dream Sight. No one knew the Emperor's motives behind this, but if she disobeyed, then both the family and she would likely be severely punished. To this though, their grandfather patted Arata from behind. Arata understood, saying that while he wouldn't be giving Miyo up, just like she wouldn't be giving up Kiyoka, he was fine letting her see Kiyoka, as long as he accompanied her. With that, Yoshido supported them on their leave, and gave her kimono back. The mood was somber in the infirmary where Kiyoka was unconscious. Miyo then barged in, calling for her fiancé, now relieved to feel he was still alive. Arata explained she had power that could awaken him, to everyone's surprise. So, she was going to do what she could. Kiyoka found himself wandering in a red-colored forest, filled with grotesquerie. He wondered if he was dead, but powered up his blade in order to deal with this hell. As Miyo lay beside him in the real world, Arata gave her instructions to visualize her soul leaving her body and entering Kiyoka's. Once inside, she needed to find his soul. Everyone here was counting on her to save him. She then grabbed his hands, taking a deep breath while closing her eyes, and found herself in a nebulous void. She woke up at what looked like the Saimori house. Meanwhile, Kiyoka continued the battle to preserve his soul, slaying one monster after the next. They just kept reappearing, while he questioned where Yoshito and the others were. He knew this wasn't the mortal world and also that he shouldn't die here. He then suddenly heard Miyo's voice calling for him, and he called for her back. Miyo went into her old home, looking for him, but was startled by a shadowy child running past her while giggling. The little girl led her around, telling Miyo to catch her if she could. The doors then opened to an endless walkway, as the little girl's voice called for Miyo demonically. A red door appeared, one Miyo recognized. The storage door she had been locked in more than once, and when she entered, she was surprised to find herself. Kiyoka continued to fight for his life, getting caught when one of the monsters broke his braided cord. He was beginning to falter, but retaliated, compelled to find his beloved. He felt pathetic, but wanted to see her once more and apologize. He doubted himself a little, but re-steeled his resolve. He couldn't allow himself to be trapped here. The other Miyo coldly told ours she could not see him because she was not good enough for him, that she was going to be alone forever because it was easier for her. She poked at our Miyo's insecurities, saying Kiyoka gave her so much kindness, yet she flatly refused and hurt him. And now because of her, he was wandering on the brink of death. Miyo accepted that she was a failure in many ways, and had been wanting to change herself to stop seeing it like that. She didn't feel that way anymore, thanks to those around who cared for her. She finally felt alright, being beside him. The other Miyo became angry, shooting the binding ropes while they turned into encompassing thorns. To her, after her mother died, every day was a living hell. She made her own heart numb, so she wouldn't feel anything. That was the only way she could live. However, our Miyo believed in change now. The other Miyo got pissed, striking her with a vine. But our Miyo was still determined not to give up. She was going to apologize to her fiancé. He believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. She walked towards the other Miyo, who continued to shoot more vines. Our Miyo knew getting hurt was scary, but she wouldn't run anymore. She continued to walk through, believing in herself. With the light putting Miyo in her maiden outfit, She promised the other Miyo she would find Kiyoka so she could live a happy life with him, and the other Miyo cried. She hoped so, fading into the light. Then, in Miyo's hands appeared Kiyoka's Kumihimo cord. He was about to continue his fight, but then Miyo called him and she emerged, and now used her powers to protect him. She became concerned over his injuries. But of course, he had to play cool, saying it was just a scratch. But still before them was more monsters to deal with. The Emperor appeared at the gravesite where the men were still chanting, hissed to learn the Yusuba were interfering with his plans. His highest priority was to eliminate the Kudou family and the power of Dream Sight. He used his abilities to converge all the grotesqueries in Kiyoka's mind into one. In response, Miyo told Kiyoka to take her hand and trust her. The Emperor called for the monster to attack, that Miyo steadily blocked. And when Miyo returned in kind with an attack of her own, the Emperor and his men in real life found themselves blown away by her might. The world in Kiyoka's soul had been cleansed, and he thanked her for saving him this time. She presented him back his Kumihimo cord, which guided her to where he was, and tied his hair with it once more. She then apologized for telling him she didn't know what she wanted back at the Yosuba house, and in return, he apologized as well, saying he didn't mean to hurt her. He had just lost his temper. The loving couple embraced, admitting they both wanted to be beside each other, no matter what. Outside, the friends and family saw Kiyoka's hand twitch, and their voices calling for the two penetrated his inner world, so they flew back up and both awakened. Seeing tears drip down Miyo's eyes, Kiyoka told her not to cry, only to get jumped by the hysteric Yoshito. Arata smiled and began his leave, but Miyo chased after him. She apologized, telling him she couldn't go back, and he was fine, telling her he just did what he wanted. Kiyoka then came out, calling for a rematch someday, and Arata accepted, waving goodbye. At the palace, Takahito explained to the general his father had already lost the ability of revelation. The emperor feared not being able to see the future, and opened the grave, putting many people's lives in danger. His plan was to make his father atone someday. The two lovers finally returned home, and thus, their everyday lives regained tranquility. The restless nightmares became a thing of the past, and now they were able to enjoy meals while having trivial conversations. These days were Miyo's happiest. Several days later, Miyo was finally able to try out her skills she learned from Hazuki. Kiyoka was taken aback, seeing his stunning fiancé in a dress. He wanted to reassure himself this wasn't a dream, and asked her to marry him once again, making her blush and turn away. The two were honored to accept each other, and happily stepped forward on another day of their lives together. Aw, what a sweet end to this anime. I like how the show is called My Happy Marriage, but they did not get married, and someone always tried to stop them from being happy. Season 2 actually starts at the beginning of 2025, so like this video and subscribe, that way you know when I'm covering it. For now though, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.